Left of the box. And I get there is a lot of anger right now because, again, the Liberal Party does exactly what the American Democrats were doing, where it's like, the economy is great, we're doing so great in the world, and on and on and on. That's not the material reality for the vast majority of people. When they say the economy is doing good, they're talking about like the top 10%. It is smoking for them. They're doing fine. They're making lots of money. The economy is great for them. But for everyone else, even though, employment, like lack of job employment or something is down or whatever, never talk about the type of jobs that people get and how little they pay and how it doesn't come nearly close to matching the cost of rent. Rent has skyrocketed. Owning a house is out of the reach of anyone who doesn't already have one. Grocery prices are skyrocketing. Like, all these things just keep on happening. And then here we have a government just telling us how good we have it here, how great it is, without acknowledging the pain, the struggles that everyone is going through. And yeah, you get mad at them for that. Why wouldn't you? Because you're being gaslit. And the thing is we know we're being gaslit, and it's frustrating because we just want them to tell the goddamn truth. But the truth is the Liberals won't fight back. They'd rather let this country slide into fascism than to do anything that's more socialism. Because they won't be affected. Their lives won't be on the line. They're part of that 1%. If they're in government, they're part of that 1%. They'll be just fine. It's not their rights on the line. So they're not fighting like they need to, like their rights are on the line. Like, that's how the conservatives get their base so motivated, is by convincing them that their rights, their way of life, everything that makes them who they are is on the line. And so that they need to come out and vote, or else they're going to lose everything they have. But the Liberals don't do that because they don't care. It's not going to affect them. But for all the other people, we know it will affect us. But they're not doing that. They're not stating to people how dangerous this is, how it will affect our lives, and how we need to go out and vote like our lives depend on it, because for a lot of people, it does. The amount of social murder Doug Ford is responsible for is horrendous. Yet he got reelected in because nobody's paying attention. Voter turnout for his second election was abysmal. There are people who are dead who would be alive had any other government been in place. And that is continuing. And it will get worse if we get a federal conservative government in. And all the people who will go out and vote for them because of the economy, because of this, they want the gas prices down, all of that sort of stuff, without realizing what federal responsibilities are, what provincial responsibilities are, the whole jurisdiction thing, without realizing what is causing a lot of these issues to begin with, and how some of them are global trends, not just in Canada. They're going to be hurt as well. A lot of people say, like, why are they voting against their interests? They don't know that. They don't know that they're voting against their own interests. Because, and I'm not saying they're stupid, they're uneducated when it comes to how the political system runs, when it comes to who does what and how, with what is causing a lot of the source of their pain. They just don't know. And there's nobody out there actively teaching them on a grand scale. You're not getting taught civics in school the way you should be taught. And then we have our corporate-owned media that is horrendously biased. And most of the people in the media, I wouldn't necessarily say they're all part of the 1%, but they're all definitely part of the 10%. They have a lack of representation in mainstream media. And when I mean that, I mean by class. They have nobody on there speaking on behalf of the people with the least, and it's the people with the least who suffer the most. Here is why Canadians are mad, and we're feeling it, despite the report that goes out and says Canada is in the top 5 of best places to live in the world and all that sort of stuff. It's because we're living a different reality than the Liberal Party is, than the Conservative Party is, than all the people who are up there in the 1%. We are living a different reality to them. This is from Nikki Ashton again. 20 of the richest Canadians have accumulated so much wealth, it's equivalent to 10% of our GDP. 20 people, 10% of our country. 123 corporations got out of paying $30 billion in taxes in 1 year because of loopholes Conservatives and Liberals refused to close. We need to change. And here's the thing, Conservatives and Liberals. We'll get into this more in just a moment.
As media becomes more concentrated, we hear less about how the 20 richest Canadians have $214 billion in wealth, equivalent to over 10% of Canada's GDP. 20 people, 10% of the country in terms of GDP. This reality is unsustainable.
So when they say the economy is booming, it's to those people only. It's not to the average person. It's to those companies.
And we need to do something about it. We hear less about how 123 corporations get out of paying $30 billion in taxes in a single year, relying on loopholes that the NDP has called on the government to close. But Liberals and Conservatives, once again, do everything they can to keep those loopholes open. As media becomes more concentrated, we hear less about how the 20 richest Canadians have $214 billion.
And this is from CTV News. Inflation is down, wages are up. Why are Canadians still frustrated with the economy? I haven't actually read this yet. The headline caught my attention because what I just said applies. The average person is still feeling it. Materialistically, the average person is suffering more than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The federal finance minister has been taking every opportunity to remind frustrated Canadians that after a bumpy pandemic recovery, the nation's economy is actually doing a lot better. And we hate when they keep on saying this because it's not affecting everyone equally. And they're just totally dismissing and disregarding the pain that people are feeling when they say this. When they just look at us and say, no, the economy is better and you should just be appreciating that and getting over it and just accepting this information we're telling you, even though your lived experience does not agree with what we are saying. Inflation is now at 1.6%, below the Bank of Canada's 2% target. Interest rates are falling rapidly and more cuts are on the way. The economy, while weak, has avoided a much-feared recession. And maybe most importantly, wage growth has outpaced price growth for 20 consecutive months. And do you know what has outpaced wage growth? Rent. Cost of living, the cost of housing has greatly outpaced wage growth. But a recent RBC analysis suggests that Canada's economy recovery has been uneven, with two contradictory trends. Beneath the surface of the more encouraging economic statistics are some less flattering ones. The top 40% of income earners have taken home 70% of the wage growth over the last 3 years. Household spending on a per-person basis is down. And while low and middle income Canadians have devoted more of their pay to essentials like food and shelter, the highest income earners continue to amass significant savings. It's very much a story of households in different income quintiles or different earning brackets, if you will, are feeling the current economic environment very differently, said RBC economist Carrie Freestone, who authored the report. I'm saying the exact same thing, and I'm not an economist. I'm just a person living in the situation. The Bank of Canada's interest rates hikes have contributed to that divergence. Steeper Steeper rates have increased the debt load of low and middle income households with mortgages and other loans. Meanwhile, people with higher incomes have been earning higher returns on their savings. And again, this goes to, when Justin Trudeau is saying, well, the economy is doing great. It's doing great for him and all of his friends and family and people he knows in that 1% bubble. And they never step outside that bubble to actually go talk to the average person and find out what's really going on. They're so much in their own echo chamber that they can't put themselves in they can't conceive of what the average Canadian is going through. They just think things are hunky-dory and that we're just whining because, maybe we can't get that extra Starbucks the way that we want or something. The Bank of Canada is in a really tricky position, Freestone said. They obviously want to target the prosperity of all Canadians, but it's very difficult to do that with monetary policy because they have one tool. Economists widely acknowledge that low-income earners are the ones who suffer the most when the cost of living rises. Wow, it's like I could have written this. The people with the least suffer the most. But Freestone's analysis shows middle-income earners have felt the bite as well. In 2023, workers in the 40th to 60th percentile of income distribution allocated the greatest share of their take-home pay to essentials since 1999. This is what's going to get the Conservatives into power because they're lying, but they're saying that they're going to change all of this. That they're going to put more money into the pocket of people, that we're going to have more spending power and all this sort of stuff, while the Liberals just up there saying the economy is doing great. I don't know what you're complaining about. Christopher Reagan, an associate professor of economics at McGill University, says it's not surprising that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's more pessimistic message about the economy has resonated with Canadians over the optimism of the Liberal have been trying to project. I swear I did not read this article ahead of time. People are still thinking about the pain they felt unexpectedly 2 years ago, and some of that pain is still there on interest rates, Reagan said. So the government focuses on the reduction of inflation, but they don't talk about prices still being high. They focus on the reduction in interest rates, but they don't talk about the people that were hurt by the interest rate increase. Stephen Gordon, an economics professor at Laval University, says people tend to have negative impressions of economic conditions even when things are going well. From his perspective, the Canadian economy dodged a bullet by coming out of a period of high inflation without experiencing a major economic downturn from interest rate hikes. He noted people's earnings have risen, including median earnings. I don't see any reason to panic, he said, adding the problems like lagging productivity and economic inequality have always been challenges in Canada. I've talked about it in some of my other live streams, but you see the gap between those with and those without has been drastically increasing. So this is the type of attitude that just drives us people. This is the type of attitude that just drives us crazy. When it's like, I don't see why you guys are worried about it. So what if you're like half a paycheck away from going unhoused? Why are you panicking? Yeah, you need this medication that isn't covering and you can't afford it. I don't get it. Why are you panicking? What do you mean it costs your family $300 per grocery trip? Why are you panicking? The economy is doing well. I don't get it. Why are you panicking? It's always been, there's always been some inequality in the system. So I don't get why you're upset about it now. It's kind of hard to put things in perspective. Sometimes it's hard to persuade people, this is as good as it gets. There really never was a golden age. Well, that I can agree with, but this is as good as it gets. That's the condescending tone that pisses people off. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland began holding weekly news conferences last fall, highlighting the government's economic agenda in response to widespread concerns about affordability. The Liberals are hoping that as the economic picture brightens, Canadians will be more receptive to the economic message. In recent months, Freeland has used the news conferences to emphasize good economic news. Again, you guys, you shouldn't be worried. Things are good. Things are good. What's that? You can't afford diapers? But things are good. Get it. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that? Your car insurance has also gone up? Well, things are good. Don't worry about it. You know, the average grocery trip for me as a single person is $100 when I live on a shoestring budget and I don't buy much in the way of luxuries. Oh, that's good. We're doing good in this country. So what? So what? Yeah, we know we're being gaslit by these politicians. The Bank of Canada was first central bank in the G7 to cut interest rates for the first time. The first one, okay. I emphasize this because it's really important. Relief for Canadians and Canadian businesses. It means more money for your household, more money in your pocket. More money goes to landlords. More money goes to corporations. But so far, Canadians don't seem to feel any better about the state of the country and the federal government, says David Coletto, the CEO of Abacus Data. On questions about food and fuel prices or housing and rental prices, there doesn't appear yet to be any shift in those perceptions, he said. The Liberals have also had no success in closing the double-digit lead the Conservatives had built in public opinion polls, despite bringing forward a spring budget heavily focused on housing. Coletto said there's a small chance that the improving economic conditions could help the Liberals, but he said the government faces significant hurdles given the Prime Minister's abysmal popularity numbers. Time is running out, obviously, Coletto said. So about the people that are happy with the economy, Canadian grocery tycoon Galen Weston Jr. is now worth a staggering $18 billion. So while people are sacrificing nutritious food for just any food, sacrificing other bills to get enough groceries for their family, for themselves, this asshole is getting rich off of that. Richer off of that. He is profiting from our suffering more and more every year. Galen Weston Jr., president of grocery giant Loblaws, has been crowned one of the richest people in Canada. Maclean's revealed its list of Canada's richest people on Thursday in partnership with Canadian Business. The rankings take a fresh look at the uber wealthy in this country. The bulk of Canada's money is held by a few at the top. On average, a billionaire will earn a typical Canadian's yearly salary by January 2nd. Just two days. Okay. What has changed is where the affluence lives, reads the report. The people, and this is from Maclean's magazine, tweet, the people on this list own grocery stores, hotels, restaurants, and wineries. You may not have heard all their names, but they're definitely part of your lives. Yeah, that's very aristocratic of them, that picture. Maclean says that the country's wealthiest are no longer just hedge fund managers and real estate moguls, but also e-commerce giants, crypto CEOs, and tech wizards. The people on the list own grocery stores, hotels, restaurants, and wineries. You may not heard the names, but definitely part of your lives. Weston is definitely one of the more well-known names on the list, but currently not for the best reasons. He received backlash from many Canadians for defending Loblaws' high food prices. On top of that, one of the biggest stories from this year surrounding the corporation was May-long boycott hosted by a community of frustrated customers. And so here we get into a little bit of a crossover because Pierre Poilievre is constantly saying that this is completely Justin Trudeau's fault, that the high grocery prices are completely, he's not doing anything. Justin Trudeau isn't doing about it. You're starving. You can't get the groceries you want because of Justin Trudeau, instead of calling out this greedy fuck. This is the corporation. Yes, the federal government could do something to rein them in, but ultimately, it's this greedy fuck that is causing the grocery prices to be unaffordable. You know, buying food shouldn't be a luxury. So it may not be welcome news to find that the grocery store exec ranks as the third richest person in Canada.